So, well, all right, 27. Let's just write another channel in case we wants to watch live there. Okay. So now we come to the question of Ketzad L'Shein HaKiddushin. What is the wording that needs to be used for betrothal? The Sheyemarhu, and that he has to be the one who says V'yitinhu, and he has to give. Because of Ketzad. So now we're talking about how do you? We spoke before. There's three ways to betroth, right? With money, with a contract, or with having relations. So how does it work with money? He gives her before two witnesses. Pruta or shave pruta, either a pruta or more, or something that has the value of a pruta or more. So like that's nowadays we put the ring on the finger, and they actually ask the Adim to look at the ring and to confirm that this is something of that has the value of a pruta or more. And he says to her, you are betrothed to me with this. Haga. And the Ramas adds to this, and some say, what is it, Limar? It seems like it should be Shin Sadik Limar. I wonder if it's a typo of that. It should be Tzorich Limar, no? Not Sheyochel Limar, no? But anyway, he needs to say to her, there's something he needs to say, Kedos Meshav Yisrael, which we actually do today. Hariyat Mekadosh Kedos Meshav Yisrael. Well, B'tabaz we also had with this ring. So we don't say Bazeh, we say with this ring. And we say Kedos Meshav Yisrael. How would you say Kedos, like the traditions of the religion of something like this, of Moshe and the Jewish people?
I've always heard it's like simply translated, just the ways of, but it's like right. What's the church does, like adas, like congregation, or what's the?
No, it's like
I'm not really
like they call them like Dusim,
What?
Like they call them Dusim, they call the in Eretz Yisrael they call the Chayedim, they call the Sveizim call them Dusim.
But I always thought it was like that, like understanding.
Right, but there's no ayin in there, so I think it's like the. I mean, maybe it comes from them also, meaning, but it's like let me see how he translates it over here. Although not doesn't mean anything because very often they'll use like see here he says that he puts according to the Daat religion of Moses and Israel, but it's not really but I guess it comes from the same maybe shadish. In either case, it's according to the religion of nation, the Jewish people. And we are this is how we our minhag is. This is how you say neagin. This is how we something ourselves, or we carry ourselves.
This is our practice.
This is what we do. And furthermore, we are our minhag. Our tradition is to betroth with a ring. And they have a reason. Al pi Kabbalah, they have a reason in Tikkun Zeh.
By the way, a pruta is like less than $1, like really cheap. Like
yeah,
like that's why I always make the joke. Like those little 25-cent like coin toy rings. Like,
yeah.
Mom, it doesn't have to be much.
Maybe that's because you're gonna pay on the tail end, because that one isn't so cheap.
What?
You're gonna pay on the tail end. That one isn't so cheap. So. It's just a deposit. It's like it's like the $5 down lease or whatever.
I think Michlal, you look at also how it's very easy to connect. It's very difficult to separate it. The whole vart of putting it there. But yes, yeah. To connect to neshamas, to connect to people, very easy. Kiddushin, it's very cheap. It's very easy. There's things that we can do. I mean, we're going through all the stuff that we have to do. But the Maisa, the things that then will necessitate a get, it's very easy. Now, how much you need to do to make sure that a get is, that it's a kosher get, that's very detailed and it's very expensive. To separate two neshamas, that's no easy thing. Like also, for example, what names have to be in the ksuba, right? You're supposed to have the name. It's supposed to be an accurate name. But when it comes to the gets, we go like all out. Every single nickname, every single anything they were ever known by,
right?
To make sure that without a doubt, I find that very fascinating that the connection is easy, cheap, but to separate to the shamas, that's no easy.
Right. I mean, even though in writing it's very particular. But when doing Mekadosh with the ring, it's you don't even say your name. I Mendel, or what's it called? The son of what do you call betrothed? What's my wife's name again? You betrothed. You asked right? No, you don't say that. You just say I here. You are Mekudesh to me.
Right. Which by the way, I tell you, it's taka. One of those mistakes and one of these small details can be used to maybe undo the ksuba to maybe kasher a mamzer, but the chalal, it's the things that would necessitate that. I look at it as the things that Rabbanim would say, oh, we're going to need a get for that. Seems to be very easy.
Yeah. So back as the Mechaber continues. Who adin in Amar lo harei atma uresasli. It's the same thing as if he says, and you are. How would you say ures? Engaged, sort of, but
what's the word? I missed it.
Like Edison.
Oh yeah, betrothed. I mean, that's what they keep. Well, we keep saying that for the Kadeshas as well. Yeah, Edison. Yeah, it's like an engagement, but Edison also.
I guess engaged would be. It's sort of like engaged.
Yeah, I feel like Edison is more of an engagement. Kiddushin is already stepped into marriage.
Kiddushin's already, I think betrothal is already. What is a betrothal? Is what is already a marriage? No, my betrothed.
Yes, one of the steps in marriage. But well, no, I feel like people in English say betrothed, meaning that they're talking about engaged, meaning
really?
This person's designated to marry me. They're betrothed to marry me. They've been separated. Kiddush Kadesh. Hagdish means really separated.
Right.
It's Kadesh removed, right? This person has been separated. They're now exclusive to be married to me, but they're not yet married to me. We're not yet married. Which actually, so that, I feel like technically betrothed is a better word for Ederson, and Kiddushin is really like a next step. But I think I don't know. For some reason, we keep like I've mostly seen kedushin translated as betrothed, and yeah,
Right,
I'm not
no,
really.
that's I've seen as well. But
I'm not sure what the
anyways,
better word.
right. So even if he says "Hayat miuresesli," you are engaged to me, or "Harei atmi leisha," or you are to me a wife. The thing the kol lashon, and so to any wording that he uses, kedushin, that its implication is a language of betrothal, that it's a definite language of kedushin in that place. So
Right.
it's the same thing. So it's the same thing. Obelvad, so long as she tovin that she understands kedushin, that this is a wording of kedushin. She has to understand that he's being kadisher.
Right.
If he was beforehand talking to her about the business of kedushin, meaning about they're going over I guess the details regarding the kedushin. And he gives her the pruta or the shava pruta or something with the value of the pruta, even quietly, without saying anything. Have a kedushin. It is a valid betrothal. This is provided that they are still involved in this subject. So if he was talking about it earlier in the day, and then now he gives this thing to her, it doesn't. It's not a betrothal. But if they're mamish now talking about it, then yeah. The kol shekeinim amar loshin kedushin vaday ela she'ena mevina isay the have kedushin. And how much more so if he tells her in a way of the an indefinite wording that's used for betrothal, but just that she doesn't understand him that it's a kiddush. Why is it how much more so?
Can you repeat it for me? I missed it.
Oh, I guess I guess he's talking about he's talking about the safer here. He's talking about the last case, not just in general, but if they were discussing, if they were just now discussing kedushin, and he gives her a ring, then she's betrothed, right? Even though he didn't say anything. So how
Even though
much
it is
more
right.
so? How much more so if he said, because in the first case we said that it's provided that she understands that it's kedushin. But if they were talking about it, then even if she didn't understand it, but if he said it, so for sure, because we already said that even if he doesn't say anything, she's betrothed. So if he
Right.
said,
Right. How much
if
more?
he, so how much
How
more
much more?
so
Like they were
if he said it, even though she doesn't, even if she doesn't not understand it, or that this is a wording of kedushin.
right, which is very interesting. It reminds me of how many like friends I have that had stories of like when they got engaged. What was the point that they knew that she was ready? Was like they were talking about. I had one friend who she said, "So when we raise our kids," and he went, "Wait, our kids? You mean so you're ready?" And she was like,
Yeah.
"Yeah." Or like
Yeah.
like stories like that where. And I have another friend who they were talking about. He's like, "Okay, so okay, we'll go to the oil," and she's like, "Whoa, whoa, 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 no, you got to ask me." Like a lot of the girls, they like to be asked the question, like, "Will you marry me?" Which is very interesting to this because we're saying technically it's not needed. If they were talking about the two of them getting married, then okay, they're ready, they're engaged. Like, go to the oil, get that out of his bracha. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
I
funny.
will say,
Well, not my actual wedding, but my wedding I asked my wife to, what's it called? Will you marry me? She said, well, I might as well now, because this was like 2 months after our wedding. Shui was already on the way. We went in order to get her visas and whatever, this kind of thing. So we had to get
Legally.
yes, ours is a Ukrainian. Our marriage of a Ukrainian marriage, Ukrainian marriage license. So we had to go. So we went to some office. The guy that he pulls out the bottle of mashkin, a few plastic cups, and that's how you do it in Ukraine. And what's it called? He said, okay, so you ask her what's it called? And okay, very good. And then I forget what's the word they use over there. That's praznikum. That's like a happy holiday. Forget whatever, but and
congratulations.
Everybody did. Which, by the way, this guy looked a little tipsy in the first place, because remember, that's what he's doing. He's doing marriage license. What a job, right? He sits there and makes the chaim with each
doing this all day.
And I remember the first appointment's 8 a.m. So by the time we got there, it was 1, 2 p.m. He'd already been joining, sharing congratulatory drinks since 8 a.m.
Right.
Yeah, so well, yeah, I guess so. I might as well at this point. Anyway, so although of course that regardless of the what do you call it? It does show an understanding of it. But anyway.
Right. No, I will say there's one point I remember a while back we were discussing, like Rabbi Friedman was talking about how different it is before Gimel Tammuz. The difference, like now, what is the going to the oil? What is it that people do to go by the Rebbe? They're basically asking for a bracha on the engagement. Used to be, though, people would write in to ask, is this a good, they wanted to know, is this the right one? And the Rebbe would comment, like, yay or nay, or nay.
He would say, well, give him the bracha for chazan which meant obviously yay.
So that's what I mean. Yeah, exactly. Like my parents asked Rabbi Groner said, I think by Mincha or Shabbos, Rabbi Groner said that Rebbe sent brachas or something, and so then my father ran to where my mother was living and then walked her up Kingston. My mother was like, that was the Schmeiss.com of its day. We walked up Kingston together. Everyone knew we were engaged. But it was the question of, are we engaged? So meaning, even if they would have talked in conversation before, I think there was a concept of, but we're not engaged until we have the approval from the Rebbe. Now it's kind of like, if in the conversation of dating, you're talking about your marriage, where you're going to live, about your kids together, you're engaged. You're basically engaged. It's time to go to the oil and get to the bracha. You basically are. It doesn't have to be explicitly said or asked. And I think that parallels kind of what we're talking about here, where you might think you have to wait until you have to actively ask, if someone's asking the Rebbe, you have to actively ask him. What's being said is, no, if it's being talked about, and then the guy, there still is an action. He pulls out a ring. But if you guys are talking about marriage, you're talking about the two of you, and then pulls out a ring and you give her something of significance like this, it's kind of a given. Okay, that's the betrothing item. That's the thing that you're Mekadesher now. You're being Mekadesher because that's the context. Context matters,
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Because context shows intent.
Right.
And
exactly.
In this case, intent matters.
Right. Exactly.
Okay, so Hagosa adds some say that it's not required that they were speaking about this thing, meaning that they're specifically talking about, okay, so let's get married type of thing,
Right.
But they're talking bichlal about, more generally about, from subject to subject, but within that general subject, as opposed to what's implied from the Mechaber is that they're specifically, it's not just that they're talking about, where would you want to live? I mean, they're talking about much more specifically, So
okay, so we're gonna get married, and the chuppah is gonna be here, and
right, and right here and here. And here, ring.
We're going to have a mechitza throughout even the meal. And
Right. The hainu she'ein medabrim b'kiddushin, meaning that even if they're not actually talking about betrothal itself, rak b'tzorchei zivugam, but rather the needs of their upcoming marriage. The yesh emirim, and some say, so that's the Mordechai and the Rashba. See that. The yesh emirim the loy ba'inam medabrim imo, ela kol shemedabrim lifoneho sagi. So some say, right? It's which is it's brought also down in the Mordechai. I don't know if he holds that way, but at least it's brought from him. And so too, sounds like in the Tur, is that even if he's not talking with her, but let's say him and his and her father are standing there talking about it, or whatever it is, or someone else, and they're talking about it in front of her, that this is enough.
So basically, yeah, the guy goes talking to her dad, saying like, "I'd like your daughter's hand in marriage," and the guy says yes, and then he goes here, and then he turns to her and hands her a ring.
Hands are
like, even though he didn't say anything to her, but come on, he just asked like.
Right. So that's good enough. So according to one opinion. Now we go to the Beis Shmuel. Pruta, right? What's this? It has to be worth a pruta, or it has to be either a pruta or more, or has the value of a pruta or more. Beis Shmuel says the comments in the Lamed Aleph Katan Hey Kosafti. Later on in 31. What do they call a sif katan? I guess it's really also a subsection. Just to call it sif katan because it's not in the actual text; it's in the commentary.
Right.
I guess note, like footnote.
Well, if you want to make it easier, then you could say call siman a chapter, a sif a section, and then a sif katan a subsection.
Yeah, something like this.
Chapter 3, section 4, subsection 5.
Right.
Because it's not really a note. It's not a,
right. It's not a note. It's right.
It is
a commentary,
subsection.
Right. So he writes. So he says to Beis Shmuel that I write over there. The ein mikadchen the chatchil matbeya, that you do not. Ideally, you do not betroth with a ring. The cost of Aran Reish Kiddushin, it takes us a Rash.
With a coin, you mean? Matbeya, a coin, no?
Oh, sorry. Matbeya with a coin. My bad. No, with a coin. Meaning you don't use money. Even though he says here you can use a coin of a value of a pruta or more, or something of the value of,
right.
But
anything
we don't use money. The Kosovo and the Ran and Taisus and the Ran were right. They write that they write in Kiddush mechuber lekarka havi kiddushin. If he betroths her with something connected to the ground, i.e., not metaltalin, right? Not what there's a word for it in real estate. They use
movable assets.
Yeah. There's actually a real estate term for there's real property, and then there's another like
movable assets. That's really not real estate, but I'm thinking legal term. Like for example, if someone gets divorced, the divorce lawyer is talking. What are the different types of assets? There's the immovable assets and the movable assets. There's the properties and land or whatever, and then there's the house. If you think though, I just have the thoughts like running around my head. This whole thing of exactly when the kedusha happens. You're like, okay, let me not kamina. Okay, just let him say it. Okay, wait a minute. I'm thinking like, because I'm thinking if let's say chas v'shalom, let's say something happens. Like let's say mamish, they're in the process of doing kedusha, and then he dies, or maybe maybe one of them changes their mind. You say, did kedusha happen already or not? Because there are ramifications. Like if let's say chas v'shalom, the guy died. If he was mekadosh, then she, like, does she inherit? Does she not inherit? Like, and he doesn't have any kids or whatever. Like, does she get anything? Does she not get anything? She wasn't, she's not a widow. Like, what? So it matters exactly when Kedushin happens, like even down to the split second. Like, was it Kedushin? Was it not Kedushin? Like.
Right.
It's funny also, like, I think about in a secular culture, from what I've heard, read, whatever people have talked, my mother's talking back in the day, there used to be a concept, and maybe it still exists by some people, called a promise ring. It was a ring saying, I'm not ready to marry you yet. And very often it was because financially I'm not there, where we're just, we're teenagers, we're college students, we're just whatever, we're not that financially well off. One day I want to buy you a real engagement ring that, is worth, $18,000 and it's whatever. And then we'll get married. But so for right now, I'm giving you something to say,
it's almost like a deposit.
Which halacha, it makes no difference. It's like, well, that's kedushin. Like, who cares?
Right.
Like, we don't care. Like that would be kedushin. Which right. I think if someone did something like that, like these.
Right.
Like,
I mean, you see that the thing is also in the secular world, it's a very different concept because fine, I'm giving you this thing, and now we change their mind. In fact, here I gave you the engagement ring. Even I changed my mind.
Right.
Unfortunately, even I gave you the marriage ring, and then I changed my mind. But sometimes, but there's no, by in halacha, it becomes there's very very heavy duty questions that are involved in that because is she now an Eishes Ish? Is she now a married woman?
Well, that's what I'm saying. Whether Eishes Ish or if he dies, is she a mana?
We're talking about now like death penalty, weight stuff. You know what I mean? Furthermore, right. You get and like you said before, property and all these things like. It's it's serious business,
Has very serious ramifications. Yeah. So
yeah.
Anyway, so fine. So
anyway, so they say that if he betrothed her with real property, right, with something connected to the ground, then it is a betrothal. Afal gavim kiddush bishtar mechuber le'av kedushin. Even though if you are, when it comes to betrothal with a contract, right? It has to be. It can't be like the contract can't be written on the ground or in the concrete and a tree stump, something like this. It has to be it has to be a movable object. The contract. However, when it comes to betrothal with using something of monetary value, if it was connected to the ground, it is a valid betrothal. Why? How do we know this? The makshinon havaya liyitzia, that we equate the coming to the going, meaning we equate marriage to the divorce. Mishum hachi, and therefore shtar mechuber pasul, it might get mechuber. So therefore, a contract that is connected, right, that's connected to the ground is invalid. Why? Just like a divorce contract that's connected is also invalid. So too, right? So we equate the coming and the going. We equate what's required to be married to what's required to be divorced. Aval kesef, but money, leishayich beget. It's not relevant by a divorce. Meaning, obviously, there is a divorce settlement, which is a separate thing. But the actual divorce itself, you can't divorce somebody with money. So therefore, there's no rule for that. And being as there's no rule for that, so therefore, this thing of monetary value that you use could be connected to the ground. And therefore, if he betrothed her with real property, she is betrothed. Gam yesh leimar, an additional reason for this. Shiny get to mechuber the puzzle. Mishum de mechuser kitzitza. Avon b'kedushi kesef kaimalon afilu lei bali yoda mikudeshes kmeitin leplini. What's the let me see if we find the proper word for it. Because basically, with divorce, you have to actually hand it to her. Yeah. It's like cutting with So basically, that's another difference here. The other difference is by divorce contract, it has to actually it actually has to come to her hand. It has to go. It has to go to her hand, or it's not, and it's not valid until that point. But with kiddushi kesef, with money or monetary value, betrothal, even if it doesn't come to her hand, it's still valid. So that's another reason why a real property is it would be valid, whereas it would be valid by betrothal, whereas it would not be valid by a divorce. Shove Pruta, cause for taste is Kedushin, the Alfinon may ever ivri. So that has to be the value of something with the value of a Pruta. The taste is right at the beginning of Kedushin. The Alfinon may ever ivri. We learn this out from a Jewish slave.
Sorry, I don't know what just happened.
Yeah, but anyways, Shove Pruta is it says the Beishmo that in Taisus, the beginning of Kedushin, he says that we learn this out from a Jewish slave. The Shove Kesef Kekesef, that something with the value of money is the same as money. Because Bechidush Yara Minu Rav Yosef Mitrani. Im hisne al menas she'etein sach zeh v'nosan shove kesef bal korcha lo yhavin esina. That if he made with her a stipulation that I will give you such and such an amount, and then he gives her the value of the money without her agreeing to accept the value of the money in lieu of the amount itself, then it's not called giving. Why? Because he gave the value of money about korchan against the will. The kasha, and this is hard to understand, because Hakosav Rashba b'chidushav, the Rashba writes in his how do you say chidushav, in his new ideas.
Yeah, and it's inventions. I don't
There's a
know.
word for it, but Rabbi Tzvi Reish Simon Kufman Gimel, and the Beis Yosef brings this Rashba in the beginning of chapter 143. Afilu Lamanda Amar Nesina Balkar Nesina. That even according to the person that's giving, giving against her will, is considered giving. Hainu Hanaisin Yotza Yedei Hanesina. So that's a different story. That is that the one giving has fulfilled his obligation to give. But to the receiver, it's not a giving. And in this case, what do you need? You need that both the giver is giving and that the receiver is receiving it, is accepting it. Because he cannot obligate against someone's will. For example, if she says tenli mana v'kadish anilah. So if she says, give me 1 mana, right, 100 zuz, and I will become betrothed to you, and Nasan Bal Karcha, and he gave her against her will, meaning he gave her, I guess, something with the value of a mana, but not the money. Lo yahavi kedushin. It's not a kedushin. It's not a betrothal. Why? Because she specifically said, in other words, there was a stipulation here. So, and being that stipulation isn't met, the giving is not a giving. According to this, even if he gave money and not something of monetary value, it would not be a kedushin. Why? Kivon dehi nisratza, because she doesn't want. Meaning, let's say she says, give me a money, and I will become betrothed to you. And let's say then he gives her half a money and says, okay, you're betrothed to me. Right? It's no good. Even not just if he gives her something of monetary value, he's giving her money. And clearly half a mana is well more than a shavat pruta, right? Than the value of a pruta. But in this case, because she first said, give me a mana and I will, so basically that the implication of that is that unless you give me a mana, A, it has to be a full mana.
That specific thing.
Yeah, and B, it has to be a mana and not something that's the value of a mana.
Right.
Then it's no good because you don't have acceptance here.
Keep the thing itself. Okay, hold on a second. I gotta use the restroom, so I'm gonna take a few minutes.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm back.
Okay. So we said
All right.
okay. So we said that it seems from the words of the Rosh in Perek Misha Achzu that he holds that even giving against her will and the value of money rather than money is a suffix also. The Hakasa Bisugya Sham, because he writes in that how do you say sugya, in that case or scenario or whatever. Im hisne shetitin itztala. If he made a stipulation that he's going to give like a cloak, the timer who and sorry, itzla dafka kamar v'lo moist bad itzla. He specifically said a cloak and not the value of a cloak. The time whom mishum damrin about habal itzadik mekaven, that we the reason there is that we say that he's giving it to let's say like almost to put her down or something like this, like to her detriment. He's intending because of Aruch, and the Rosh writes im hisrat likach moisav nesin, that if she wants to take money instead, then it's good, then it's valid. And if she agrees to it, Shmami no, so it comes out a sugya ayri ben esina bal kakav, that it's talking about he gives it, he's giving it against the will. If not for the fact that he was that he's intending it to her detriment, it would have been a good giving. So it comes out what? That even giving it to not what she wants, and if it's a value of money, it's good. However, according to according to what it's written in 123, Sivkat Tanyua that he writes, it's not a proof to the Rosh. V'ayim b'chos ma'ara ben sasin simin samar gimel simulation of Absam Zayin. And we can bring another proof that is seen about Karchach V'Shavi Kesef, that if we that giving against the will and not money but rather the value of money, having a sina is considered giving it me'eved ivri from the case of the Jewish slave. The sham b'chidush now. But however, in the chidushim that we said above, which was the chidushim of Mireno Rav Yosef Mitrani, he does not agree with this. He pushes away that proof because of, and he writes, "Shiny Eved Ivri the Ribo HaTeira." It's different than Eved Ivri, I guess, because the Teira specifically in that case has certain rules that are shaykh to only to an Eved Ivri that do not carry over to other things. The Lechura Dortamuim, and at first glance his words are surprising. In Cain, that if so, Minolama Tesis Resolution Lamelav Eved Ivri Shav Kesef Kesef. Because that's the case, so how is it that Tesis, like we said before, Tesis learns out from Eved Ivri that something has the value of money is the same as money. So if you can carry that over, why can't you carry other things over? Meaning, if Rabbi Yaakov Mitrani is trying to say, no, that's different. Now it's the Eved Ivri has its own rules that you can't bring to here. If that's the case, so how does Taisus bring that rule of Shavat Kesef Kesef, that the value of money is like money? So, anyways, it seems like what he comes out is he holds that it's a machlekes. If he gives in this way. So then we have a middle law, right? So we said that he has to give her something that is money or the value of money. And he says to her, V'im Omar Tili Kiddushayich Mi'al Gabi Karka, Harizev Safik Kiddushin from Juvas Rashach. So if he doesn't give it to her, right? Meaning he doesn't say, here, with this thing you are, no, rather he puts it on the ground and says to her, take your Kiddushin from the ground. Then it's a suffix. It's a how do you say a suffix? It's a like a doubt. What is it? A doubt.
No.
Maybe yeah, maybe no. It's not sure if it's, which has implications, because being that a suffix kiddushin means she's a suffix married woman, which means that she would need a get from the suffix, most likely. So what does he say? He says, Ariat Mikdash Esli, says the Beishmul, consultations of each conclusion. What how Pej Liesli? The what's the meaning of li, of you are mekudesh to me, meaning li to be to me. Tariad mekudeshes loshin hekdish al kol adam bishvili. It's like the wording of like separation of like hekdish, of like when you separate for the, it would separate the first fruits and stuff like that. So basically, it's called hekdish. Also, that he's separating her on any person from any person on my behalf. Uki'ilu amar hari at mikudeshes. And it says if he said hari, so he's asking, what if he doesn't say mikudeshes? What if he just says hari at liesli or something?
Your mind, girl.
Yeah. So he says that this is the same. As Ariad Mikudeshes, and she's also on the whole world, Li Bishvili, to me from on my behalf. So she's not that everybody else, nobody else is allowed, is permissible to her, or she's not permissible to anybody else. So we said Bilvad Shehitavin, right? That this is with the stipulation that she has to understand this she has to understand it. Kain hu losh natur. This is the wording of the tur, mashma filu im amar hariyat mikudeshes, and applies that even if he said hariyat mikudeshes, you are betrothed to me, tzarich leida, he has to know she mevino, that she understands it. She understands shehul shen kiddushin, that this is a betrothal. Meaning you can't just say, oh well, everybody knows that this is a lashon of betrothal. Rather, he has to know that she understands that him saying Hariyat Mekudeshes Li is a language of betrothal. The lav kol anoshim mevinis lashon hakodesh. That not all women know the holy tongue, meaning they don't know Hebrew. Well, maybe in Israel they do, but if you went back to Europe, very often the women would know Yiddish, or before that, whatever other languages, depending on where in the world they were, Ladino or Aramaic or different things like that. So, therefore,
Like today in America, in English, it's not from
yeah.
Like they say in English first and then say
Right,
so we
English, right. He's gonna now say he's gonna now tell you you are betrothed to me with what's it called? And you're right, exactly. Because it's important that he has to make sure that she understands, even when he's using even when he's using like mamish the proper wording for it and everything. So this is what all these people. It seems like they hold the like a Beis Yosef and not like the Beis Yosef. Meaning, I guess the Beis Yosef seems to imply that if he uses the proper wording, Hariyat Mekudeshes Libazeh, then it's fine. It's specifically when he says something else like Hariyat Meuresesli, like right, you're engaged to me, you are my wife, and these kind of things. That specifically she has to understand that it's a wording used for kedushin, for betrothal. Meal, however, Nida Akolafi. It would seem that everything is according to the specific situation. If it's evident that this woman knows what's going on, then it's a kedushin. And in other, if he uses other forms of language, and she says she doesn't understand, she didn't understand, she didn't realize what was going on, then it is a suffix of a betrothal, a doubt. So maybe yeah, maybe no. The Shema Mishakeres, that maybe she is lying because she wants to get out of it now. Now that she's been married to him for a few minutes, she realizes it's not so good. So she says, I didn't understand what he was saying. And so too Rabbein Yerucham writes in the back. And from the Rosh, Anil Shani to Brira Lon, Daviloshin Kedushin, Lav Kol Kimine Lemar Lo Yahav Yodana. So this that he says that any wording that is used that is clearly a form of a language used for betrothal, it doesn't help for it if she says I didn't understand. He's a father of Ein Menes Lakar Kedushin Gamer Lavi Safik Kedushin. So we can understand his words to mean that the same thing, that it's we don't believe her to uproot the betrothal altogether, but rather it's now in a state of it's a maybe kedushin. This is what the Torah writes, but right, which is also the Mechaber uses the same wording, that provided that she understands. Why? Because basically, even though there's these different cases, and then she says she doesn't understand, and then you have a suffix, it's maybe and maybe not. At the end of the day, that means she would have to get a divorce to go to somewhere else. But in the meantime, she's still not properly betrothed to him. Right? The suffix works. It works both ways against her. So she's not really betrothed to him either. Because it's a suffix. It's a maybe. But however, in order to have a full 100% kedushin, we have to make sure she understands. Beis Shmuel Vav. Midaber ima, right? As if he was talking to her about these concepts, about kedushin, about betrothal. Kosovo Rambam, the Rambam writes, Hoyi Midaber ima isha iski kedushin v'rotzisav kidesh. If he was talking about her about the betrothal and she was willing, and he gets up and is mekadisher and betroths her. Because of Mishnah because Mishnah says, but specifically when she says yes, avol shoska, but if she was silent, loy mahani does not help. However, from the other Peskim, it does not sound like this. Meaning, it sounds like they don't hold that she has to have said yes. It just if she was silent, it's also yes. The Mishnah, Seif Gitin. Right, like the Rama brings after that not only did she not have to not only did she does she not have to say yes, even if the discussion wasn't directly with her but rather in front of her, it's enough. So obviously, if he's talking directly to her, and even though she's silent, obviously, so long as she didn't protest, then it's a good betrothal. And so too, it would seem that according to the Rambam, we would hold that if she was silent, that it is this implies that she is willing. Gam Chidushi Mari Tisik al Mishnah, and also in the Chidushi. We said Rabbi Yosef from Tirani, right? So that he disagreed with the Mishnah. So everybody holds that the conversation to her about betrothal, it has to be obvious that he's talking about. They're not talking about in general about. He can't say you know what the Rebbe wrote about kedushin and give her a ring, haha. Right? No, it has to be. They were talking about specifically. They were talking about him getting married to her. About their marriage, not not stam the idea of kedushin. There's also actually a chelkas mechekik here. Vavachi tav and shulchan kedushin is that provided that she understands that it is a wording that makes her betrothed. If she said she didn't understand, she is not betrothed at all. However, if he used a form of wording that we would expect, we would normally expect a woman would understand this to be a wording of betrothal, then in this case she's not trusted to say she didn't understand, and meaning, and it's a good kedushin, it's a good betrothal. However, she is believed to the stringent, and in general, because we're talking here about the implications of a kedushin, means that she's a married woman and she is prohibited upon other people. So we are stringent about this thing, and therefore we do apply the stringencies. However, if it's a wording that's not, that people don't that you wouldn't expect to be recognized necessarily as a wording used for betrothal, then she is trusted lema levanti to say I didn't understand. And so too it is what is the is what it sounds like that all the Peskim hold of Rabbi Yeruchim because of the Havi Gamkin Safek Kedushin. But Rabbi Yeruchim writes no, it's a Safek Kedushin. It's a maybe yes, maybe no, meaning it's the same thing like we said before that it's to the we do apply the stringency of it still. Well, the Ma'aser Tzorech and in actuality, it needs further thought, further delving into to understand if we need to worry about his words and actually, which meaning that in that case we would require either a get or that they do the betrothal again in a proper way. And that is Aleph. And I guess next time we continue with base.